All right, we're going holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. Again, want to welcome on. Sorry for delay here, but again, want to welcome on holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. We are in second chapter, still in the second chapter, chapter 15. Sorry, chapter 2, Mishna 15. This is going to be, I guess, part 40. I think the last one was part 39. Right, so this one should be part 40. Right, we'll see if we actually finish it up here. Again, we are holding by Pirke Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 2, Mishna 15. And this again is part 40. So we've been speaking for a number of weeks, the last part of the Mishnah. And the last part of the Mishnah says that you should warm yourself by the fire of the sages. Beware lest you be burnt by its embers, by its bite of a fox, sting is sting of a scorpion, hiss is the hiss of a serpent. In other words, like fiery coals. So we spoke last week. I was speaking about this for a while, but basically why the fact that when a fox bites, we spoke. The fact that the bites, the crooked teeth, right? So because they have crooked teeth, it's more painful, right? It's a lot more painful, so to speak, because when they bite, the bite goes in and it's very sharp, right? It goes at an angle. So therefore, if it goes at an angle, the doctor has to cut away the flesh in order to heal it. So that's why it's much more painful, right? So we spoke as well, about this idea, that spoke whatever last week really, that the words are like fiery coals, right, as we said, and that's when they speak, when rabbis speak, so to speak, it's in fire, right? You can feel the fire, burn, when they speak. Now, that means speaking badly against them is worse than if you speak against anybody else. Now, obviously, because they represent Torah, right? And all the Torah that they learned, right? They deserve respect, right? Even, let's say, maybe someone doesn't, even if they're called a rabbi, but let's say they don't have a pulpit or, they don't have synagogue or whatever, the fact that they have that knowledge, as long as they're using that knowledge in the right way, obviously they deserve respect. So the Gemara says a number of places that you have these stupid Babylonians that would stand up for Sefer Torah when a Torah scroll, comes out of the ark. You stand up, right? Stand up, show respect for the Sefer Torah. And at the same time, what you do is, so the Gemara says these stupid Babylonians, they'll stand up for the sake of a Sefer Torah because you have to stand up, right? Sefer Torah comes in the room wherever you are, you have to stand up, show respect. So someone who represents Torah, they walk in the room, you also have to show respect, right? And what's that level of respect? They walk in the room, you stand up, right? That's the level of respect. Now, even that being said, we would say that so if a person speaks negatively against someone with that level of knowledge, you gotta be careful, right? You gotta be very, very careful. It doesn't mean, as we always say, it doesn't mean you can't ask questions, right? You can ask questions. May not like the answers, okay, right? But it doesn't mean what they say isn't true. So, so there has to be respect. There has to be respect for that. So I mentioned a number of times, where, I had someone used to ask me a lot of questions. And every time I would answer, he'd say, well, why do you hold like that? Someone else holds like this. Or someone else holds like whoever. So, my answer is, why are you asking me the question? Right? If it's a question, we made this distinction before. If it's a question in Jewish law, you can't rabbi show, unless they made an egregious mistake. If they made a big mistake, good. So then you can call them on it. Then you can ask someone else. But it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that you ask someone a question, unless they made a mistake, you can't rabbi show. Right? If it's in Jewish law. Now, Jewish philosophy, there are plenty of things. There might be differences of opinion. Okay. Right? That's not a problem. That's not a problem as long as it's within the parameters of Torah, right? As we mentioned many times. If it's in the parameters of Torah, good. If it's not in the parameters of Torah, okay, that's a different issue. And then you got an obligation to call it out, right? Then you would have an absolute obligation to call it out. So we said before that the reason they deserve honor, right, is because of their knowledge. So making fun of them or disgracing them will come at a very serious price. Now, the questions come up, why would people necessarily, speak against rabbis? Well, first of all, the higher up you go, meaning that a person's knowledge, let's say, where do they go? Who are they going to complain against? They're going to complain against your average Jew, maybe. Maybe they'll do that. They don't have so much knowledge. So who are they gonna complain against? The top. They're gonna go against the boss, right? Someone who's higher up. Right? So we see that all the time. Right? It's very common. It's very common that, as we've mentioned before, we mentioned this idea many times before. If a company, let's say, has difficulty or struggle, who gets blamed? The boss. Right? They may bring in another CEO or CFO or whatever. Right? But the person that gets blamed, usually, is the boss. What do you call it? In sports, no different. No difference. Team, let's say, underperforms or doesn't perform the way they should or whatever. So who's gonna be in the most trouble? And that's gonna be the coach. Coach gonna have the most problems. Right? Because he's the one brought in to turn the place around, to make them successful. Right? Now, could be maybe, the players tune them out. Right? But if you dealt with a bad hand and the team is bad, well, it's not necessarily the fault of the coach. That could be the fault of the owners, the president, or whatever. They also maybe get canned, right? Executive vice president or whatever. They also get canned, right? Because they're not doing enough to help, to help the team. But usually, right? Usually, who gets the axe first is the coach. Why? He gets blamed. He gets blamed for not bringing the best out in his player, or the fact the players tune him out, or whatever. But think about it. If the team isn't good, why should you get blamed? Really, the owner should get blamed. Or the one making those decisions. Who are you going to get rid of? Who are you going to trade for? This, that. They should get blamed. Imagine. Team's doing pretty good. Yeah, but they need help. So they say, no, we got people coming back from the injured list. We have other things. We're not going to spend this kind of money because we think the team's good enough as it is. And what happens if the team falters? What happens too little, too late? Who gets blamed? It's not necessarily the coach. It's the one who makes the decision of bringing the players. So they decide we're not going to bring any new players in. We're going to go with what we have. Okay, but it was a bad decision. Right now, why do I use this as a metaphor? Because average Jews, I don't know too many people care about. Even though, let's say, Kol Yisrael Ravim said was it. All Jews are intertwined, which is true. We're all intertwined, for sure. So even if a secular Jew does something wrong, all Jews get blamed. But the reality is, it's a lot worse at the top. Your average Jew does something, all Jews get blamed. Yeah, but who are they looking for? Are they looking, to say things against the average Jew? Or are they going to say, oh, look at these rabbis. They only want this, they only want that, they only think about themselves. They're, whatever. They go for the top. They go for the top. And even if they say things that are true, people don't want to hear it. All right? The chief rabbi, Sephardic chief rabbi, a while ago, was saying that, you have a lot of Russians that have come to Israel, have come into Israel over the last 20, 30 years. And the majority of Russians coming in are non-Jews. Right? They're non-Jews. Now, obviously the media, heard about this, and they gave him a hard time. They gave him a very hard time. They want to say it's blasphemy, it's other things, put him in jail, for saying that they're bringing in all these non-Jews. So the chief rabbi said, where I got this information from? You think I'm just saying it to make you guys look bad or whatever, but you know where the information came from? He said, I'll tell you. The information itself came from where? The Bureau of Statistics. Jerusalem Bureau of Statistics. We said, yeah, so he said that, I'm using your own statistics. Yeah, this is your own information. If it's your own information, what are you coming out against me? Again, anytime a rabbi says something, people are going to analyze it, scrutinize it, and say, oh, where'd you get this from? It's discriminatory, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. Okay. But the reality is, he said, I'm using your own statistics. If I'm using your own statistics, what are you yelling at me? I'm using your own information. I mean, and they made clear years ago, because I heard this on the radio, but they made this clear. They want all these Russians coming to Israel to offset the ultra-Orthodox, because everyone else, no one's having kids. Right? They're not having kids. So, the ultra-Orthodox, the ultra-Orthodox themselves, have a lot of kids. So you have everybody else. They're not really having so many kids. And they feel that, this voting bloc, other things, they're going to start to grow and grow. We need to offset that. So what do? So they bring in these Russians who definitely hate religion. Certainly hate religion. Because they're born and bred that way. Right? Brought up, communist, whatever. So they're born and bred against religion. So they bring them in to offset against us. And I think, come on. Isn't that a little far-fetched? Anyone in the know knows this. But they made it very clear. They made it very clear. We're not, I'm going to get into politics here. But they made it extremely clear. That was their goal. That was their goal. Still their goal. What can they do? They still have to deal with us. But okay. Is it any different? I'll make a little bit of a distinction here. Again, without getting into politics, but you look at what's going on in the States, get all these migrants coming in. Who do you think is trying to sign them up? Democrats. Let the borders open. Trying to make, all these laws, you don't need ID in order to vote. Well, guess who that's going to help? Guess who that's going to help in the election? They'll do whatever it takes to win. There's no question. Right? But, without getting into politics, there's a good reason. There is very good reason. More voters. We'll sign them up. We'll get them the ability to vote. Who do you think they're going to vote for? Right? So that's pretty obvious, I think. But regardless, first people that are going to get criticized, are the higher echelons of Torah. Not just your average Jew. You're going to say the ones causing the problems, yeah, they're the rabbis telling their people do this, do that, do the other thing. They're going to get called out first. Now remember, what does the Mishna over here say? Mishna over here says you got to be very careful. Right? You got to be extremely careful. Because you say things against them, say Lashon Hara against them, yeah? You're playing with fire. My Rebbe would say, all the people spoke negatively against him. He said he can't wait, and the next world's going to get all their mitzvahs. Right? Because the Chos of says, brings down. Someone speaks Lashon Hara against someone else, if they don't repent or whatever, they get all their mitzvahs. A friend of mine would say, you want their mitzvahs? They spoke Lashon Hara. You want their mitzvahs? I don't think they want their mitzvahs, but you get all their mitzvahs. So whoever would say, all these people spoke negatively against me, so I'll get all their mitzvahs. We're playing with fire, though. That's the point. It's going to come at a price. Now, why is it worse, right? I spoke about this last week, but I just want to emphasize, why is it worse? It's worse because the honor of Torah is disgraced. That's why it's worse. The honor of Torah is disgraced. It would be like taking a Sefer Torah, taking a Torah scroll and just throwing it on the floor. That's what it's like. Someone say, I'd never do that, come on. That's disgracing the Torah scroll. True. There's a case of, someone during the Holocaust, secular Jew, and Nazis, Yamach Shemam V'Zichram, their name be brought up and they rot wherever they are. Tells this Jew, they have a Sefer Torah there, rip to shreds, whatever, says, I want you to defecate on the Sefer Torah. I want you to go make on this Sefer Torah. Now, it's a secular Jew. Maybe do it to save his life. Maybe. Never know what people will do to save their lives. But the secular Jew says, no. I'm not going to desecrate a Sefer Torah. I'm not going to desecrate a Torah scroll. They killed him. And he died sanctifying God's name. Right? So there are certain things even a secular Jew wouldn't do. And he paid with his life, but he sanctified God's name. Now, the irony is, just, on this topic, the irony is, there are people that spit in God's face on a daily basis. They don't keep Torah. They eat on Yom Kippur. They go against everything the Torah says. So essentially, they're taking a Torah scroll and throwing it on the ground. Right? The example, I gave, imagine, you take a, secular Jew, intermarried, right? Married to a non-Jew. So you take him to synagogue. So why are we going to synagogue? So I want to show you a few things. Okay. So they come with you. You turn the lights. You go into the sanctuary. So what are we doing here? So we're going to take out the Torah scroll. He says, why? It's no service. Well, we're going to take out the Torah scroll. Don't worry. So they open the ark. They take out the Torah scroll. So the person like, why are we doing this? So he said, I want to show you something. So take out the Torah scroll, put it on the bima, right? Put it on the lectern, and they take off the cover, opens the Torah scroll. The other person's like shocked, like what's the point? What are we doing here? Why are we opening this Torah scroll? There's no service, nobody here, right? No one here except us, right? The person says, this Torah scroll is holy. The words written on it are holy. And the person still doesn't get it. Says, okay, so let me make it real graphic. I want you to take this Torah scroll now. I want you to pick it up and I want you to throw it on the ground. And then after you throw it on the ground, I want you to defecate on it. The person says, you're nuts. You lost your mind. Why in the world would I ever do that to a Torah scroll? Now, what's the simple answer? What's the simple answer? Simple answer is you're living with a non-Jew. That's as if to say you take the Torah scroll and you defecate on it and you throw it on the ground. It's the same thing. You come up with excuses. You'll say, no, it's only that generation, or it's only the generation that went into the land. It's not really forever, and it's this and it's that. You come up with Webster's 8th, 9th definition of why it's okay. But essentially, no. You're taking that Torah scroll and you're throwing it on the ground. You're making fun. You're scoffing. You're mocking. Isn't this the same thing? Person mocks, makes fun of someone who represents Torah. I'm saying where they absolutely represent Torah. I'm not talking about, fakes or, people who do things that they shouldn't do, whatever. I'm talking about the real deal. People are the real deal. That's what you're doing. Right? Make fun of them, scoff at them. Yeah. A person's going to pay a price. Because the Torah itself is disgraced. When you disgrace the Torah, heads will roll. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. So now we'll go a little bit further. There's a reference. There's a reference to Gehazi. Right? Who is Gehazi's Rabbi? Elisha. Who is Elisha's Rabbi? Eliyahu Hanavi. Right? Elijah the prophet. Gehazi, he fell into a disgusting sickness. He was sick. Right? What was his disgusting sickness? He had tsaras. I'm not going to say it's leprosy. It's some spiritual disease that manifests itself in a physical way. Right? As the Torah says. We're speaking Lashon Hara. Now, why did he get tsaras? What did he do? Remember, you had to be outside the camp if you had tsaras. You had to fully repent. Spoke about this a lot. We spoke about in the book of Leviticus, when we spoke about this. This is something that the only possible way, no natural or unnatural remedy would take it off. No bombs, no salves, no nothing. Right? No ointments, acupuncture, nothing. Even with alternative medicine, nothing will work. What's the only thing that's going to work? Tshuva. Repentance. God saw that a person fully repented, and he had regret, remorse, and all that. Very good. That saved it. That allows him to come out. That allows him to be healed. That's it. There's no other possible thing in such a case to do to get rid of saras, right? Except for repentance. Bribery, nothing. No medicine, conventional or non-conventional, right, will help this person. What's the only thing that's going to help is repentance. So as the story goes, what did he do? What did Gehazi do? He came out against his Rebbe Elisha, which goes to show you need to have respect and be so careful when speaking. The rabbis came out against him. Everyone's told me. He said, listen, when you come out against me, he said, only throw little stones. I'm like, nah, God forbid. I said, you changed my life. You saved me, this, that. He said, I know what I'm talking about. And a lot of people come out against him, different reasons, whatever it was. He says, when you come out against me, little stones, little pebbles. Because he told me, what does Mishna Pirke Avos say? Get there when I'm like 97. What does the Mishna Pirke Avos say? It says, never rely on yourself until the day of your death. You don't know the day you're going to die. You have to repent. Right? You need to repent every day. Very good. But it says, never rely on yourself to the day you die. Which means that the Yetzer or the evil inclination doesn't leave a person till the day he dies. So right before the person dies, could be. The Yetzer or the evil inclination tries to convince him of different things, and he's, then he loses his mind different ways. He says things that he shouldn't say, whatever. But he says, never rely on yourself until the last day. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to be thinking, what you're going through. Maybe you say, oh, you think you know this, you think, did you really help me? You could have done more. But who knows what can go in a person's mind? So Rebbe said, don't worry, little stones. It's like, I know what I'm talking about. How does he know? Because it happened to him. It happened to him a number of times. People work with and helped and this and that, and they spit on him. Yeah. You can say, how can that be? Yeah. It's not easy questions to answer. Listen, a person may feel they got wrong. Maybe they say they feel could have done more. I don't know. Something enters their head where they shouldn't have gratitude. But not just not having gratitude. They'll say, come on, he's too stringent. Come on. He's always stringent. He never looks for leniencies. He never helps people, whatever. They give him a bad name. So he once told me something in the name of Rav Nachman of Breslov. What did Rav Nachman say? Rav Nachman said, whatever you believe in, it has to be very strong. You have to believe very strong. Why? Because if anyone comes out against you, what you believe in has to be very strong. In case people come out against you. Okay. So Rebbe said, Hasidim are, many followers I can't say I have. Detractors, he said I got plenty. Right? So he'd say, Hasidim, I don't have too many. Misnagdim, those who go against you. Right? We will get Misnagdim as Lithuanian Jews, but really, literally, it means those who are against you. Right? So he says, Misnagdim, I got plenty. People against me, I got plenty. I remember telling someone this story, and he was so amazed. He says, wow. He says, he even knows the books of Rav Nachman. Or Rav Nachman of Breslov. But he knows what he's talking about. Doesn't need me to agree. He's saying people you've helped, this, that. You get spit on. Part of the job. Sometimes more, sometimes less. One of my rabbis that's also a trained psychologist as well. It's helped a lot of people. It's helped a tremendous amount of people. He told me. He told me once, told me a certain story. And he said, this person, I saved their life. I saved their life, I saved their marriage, whatever it was. And he told me this person, later accused him of this, accused him of that, like he never did anything. Like he never even helped. He said, I saved his life. I saved his marriage. Wasn't bragging. Wasn't telling me that to brag. Right? But he was telling me that, in this line of work, right? In this line of work, you got to realize you can help people or do what you can as much as you can. And people say it wasn't good enough. Should have done more. Should have done this. Now, why is that? Because the person has the ability to influence and knows what they're doing. They're held accountable at a greater level, at a much greater level. Now, you tell me, well, maybe that shouldn't be, but again, they're holding a different place. I've seen it. Maybe some people are right. Maybe could have done more. Maybe. Or they don't like what happened. They don't like the end result. They didn't, The end result is not always things we like. Things don't always go the way we think. But being able to listen, it's also a hard thing. It's also a very hard thing. I can tell you certain things. My Rebbe told me it was hard. Not going to say not. It was hard. Made a lot of enemies. A lot of people didn't like what he said. Okay. I had an obligation to listen. And most of the time I listened. Well, I didn't come out smelling like a rose. People say, oh, wow, it's so unbelievable, this, that. No! Old school, old world, this, that, what about this, what about that? Don't take this into account, that into account. People are going to say, second guess, someone, who's the Torah giant of the generation. Okay. So these secular Jews know better. Okay. But you never lose. Even though it looks bad, you still never lose. Right? I get this all the time. Yeah, I listened and it became harder. I did this, it became harder. Yeah, what does that mean? It means God's saying, I'm going to squeeze you more. For whatever reason. For whatever reason. Could he make it worse? Oh, yeah. No one goes through this world unscathed. It's a lot of pain a person can go through. No question. We want everything to be easy. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to go through difficulty. Everybody wants it to be smooth. The problem is, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes not. But you got to remember as well, we said this many times, the closer you want to be to the king, the harder it is. The greater the test. I told someone a certain situation. I told them that, you think the evil inclination over here is going to make it easy? Someone, let's say, has the ability, we use parnas, we use livelihood as an example. Imagine someone's got the ability to make a lot of money. Now, according, everything on paper and everything they see according to nature, it should go. Okay, maybe it's a timing issue, so maybe it'll take a little bit longer. Let's say, okay. But according to nature, it should go. Why do, so what's the problem? So you tell me, maybe it's an advertisement, maybe this, whatever. Right? Could be a lot of different things going on. Could be. But at the end of the day, if according to nature, all things being equal, that it should go, what's the evil inclination? I don't want it to go. I don't want you to have it easy. I don't want you to, help out others or this and that. So I'm going to squeeze you even more. Make it harder. You're going to say, but according to nature, it should go. You're right. And it probably will. Everything's obviously timing. Very good. But I would say, if that's the case, if that would be the case, evil inclination not going to make it easy. Imagine, I know this from a number of people, right? Imagine, a JIT, a Jew in training, moved. He moved to a Jewish community. I haven't heard to so many instances that it was easy. Some more, some less, but each person has their own story and how they did it. But most of the time, it's not necessarily so smooth. Now you say, but look at all the self-sacrifice. See, this is the kicker. People will say, I changed my life. People will say, I left my family. Right? My family doesn't want to have anything to do with me. Friends don't want to have anything to do with me. It's a very lonely life. Okay, might be true. But what's the question people ask? Many people ask the question. Maybe it doesn't have to be this hard. Okay, maybe. But if you change your life, you recognize God for who He is. You're working in the right direction. Why is it every little thing you do, you seem to get sledgehammered? You seem to lose everything around you. That seems to be important. Person will probably see it's less important as time goes on, but let's say they see it as being very important. Okay. But why is it everyone's against? Why is it everyone wants to make it so hard? What's the simple answer? First of all, they can't recognize what you do as being good. Because that goes against what they believe. That goes against their values. So when it goes against their values, what are they saying? Oh, you don't think I'm good enough. For many Jews say, you don't even think I'm Jewish. Well, if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. Very good. No problem. Right? You don't think I'm good enough because I don't keep kosher. I'm this or I'm that. Does it matter what I think? Do most people care what I think? No. What does the Torah think? What does the Torah want from me? So it's a different way now of looking at the world. Oh, you found this new called religion and you think we've been lied to in Christianity? It's like, yeah, I have a lot of evidence. You want to see it? You interested? Oh, you don't want to hear that. Because then they're going to realize their whole lives have been wasted. So the last 32 years, I met one person that was intellectually honest. The person who was intellectually honest, says that if I look into Judaism and I find out it's true, this person's married to a non-Jew. So they say, if I find out it's true, then I'm going to have to change. And I'm not willing to change. I'm not willing to take it that far, so I'm not going to look into it. So better I don't look into it. Okay. So that person 100% intellectually honest. So the last 32 years, I met one person. One person that's intellectually honest. Could be there are others out there. I've met one. Everyone else has all kinds of crazy ideas what they think the Torah means. It could have meant it's, Webster's 5th definition or 10th definition. Could have thought a lot of different things. Who the heck cares? Right? As we say in Boston. Who cares? Is it true or is it not true? If I have to look into it and I find out it's true, they're not willing to change. Okay. I can respect that. Because they're honest. Everybody else isn't honest. Right? Most people are not honest. They won't be honest. Because they don't want to change. They don't want to believe that everything they've done up until this point has been a waste of time. And not just a waste of time, but forbidden. Mind-boggling. Who wants to hear they've been wrong for the last 50 years? Right? Like someone said, or their father said this, or what? You think I've been in the church in the last 50 years, been lied to? Yep. That's what we're saying. It's kind of crushing for someone. I had someone was learning Hebrew, and they came to this mistranslation of Isaiah about Immaculate Conception. That was it. 68 years old. Left everything in the church. Did whatever they could to convert. People want fantasy. They absolutely want fantasy. Because they're not going to ask the question. But how many real intellectually honest people are out there? If someone's searching for truth, good. Most people are not interested. They'll take fantasy. But people say, come on. You think this is what's been going on the last 50, 60 years? I've been lied to by the church? Well, what's the answer? We know what the answer is. Can't be the truth. Many reasons why it can't be the truth. But see, you got to be very, very strong. You got to have a lot of intestinal fortitude in order to look yourself in the mirror and say, I blew the last 50 years. Harsh. So a lot of people won't look at that information. They're not interested in looking at that information. Because again, what's the church going to do? Keep everyone afraid. If I don't believe in JC, I'll fry now forever. Okay? That's what they're going to be afraid of. Unless they 100% believe he's not the Messiah. But they have to be 100% convinced. If they're 50% convinced, 60% convinced, not enough. They have to be all in. That's a hard thing. If someone 100% believes it, good. But then it comes at another price. And what's the other price? The other price is everyone around you. Family, friends. You lose everything. Or potentially could lose everything. That's someone I mentioned the story before. Somebody, it's a very small town, extremely small town, like 3,000 people. Realized Christianity is not true. So basically left Christianity. Problem is, he had no life afterwards. Because all social life and everything revolved around the church. Kind of ostracized because no one else thought like them. But he said, I can't go back. There's nothing for me to go back to. Yes, kids had a hard time. Whatever, struggle. Until you get out of Dodge. But being in such a place, very hard. There are people who can be in much bigger places and be in the same boat. Don't have to be in such a small town, but this is a little more graphic. Because everything around them revolves around the church. Now, if you don't believe in the church, and you believe it's false, well, guess what? Then you got nothing. Not to mention, what family's going to say, whatever. So again, these are hard tests. These are for sure hard tests. But a person has to be, a person has to be searching for truth. If they're not searching, it's not going to matter. Right? Century, it's not going to matter. But, you got to work hard over here. And it may not be pleasant. Right? And for sure, it may not be pleasant. So here, back to our idea here. So here, spoke about Gehazi, spoke against his Rebbe Elisha. And because he spoke against him in a negative way, You got tzaras. Pay the price. You need to be careful. Now, as we said before, if the person's a heretic or other things, makes egregious mistakes, it's a problem. So that we can answer up and say, fine, those people you come out against. Those people you stand up against because they are misleading other people. So the very severe punishment for what we call machti es harabim, causing others to go astray, very serious prohibition. And many rabbinic authorities bring down that the person leading them astray is worse than what the other person does as a sin. Right? Let that sink in. The person doing the sin, you're going to say, okay, they're going to pay a price. They can pay a serious price. Very good. But the person leading them is worse. The person trying to convince them to go in that direction is worse. It's worse than the sin itself. Mind-boggling. Most people would have said the person sinning is bad. They're going to pay the price. Oh, the one that convinced them, okay, also pay a price. But the person sinned. Well, why'd he sin? Why'd he go in that direction, in that path? Because of influence. Influence of others. Imagine, right? I'll make this a little more graphic now. Imagine, because of peer pressure, societal pressure, whatever it may be, convince the person to do certain things. They get pressured, gave in to the pressure, and then what happens? They end up doing terrible things. But why did they end up doing it? Because other people influenced them. Wasn't because they would have done it themselves. Now, if you tell me they would have done it themselves, they just needed a little bit of help. Okay, so the question is, how much liability is there? Okay. Or tell me they did it themselves. Okay, so they're liable. But if they get convinced by someone else, if they get convinced by someone, let's say, is very charismatic, they act in a certain way which goes against Torah and mitzvahs. Now, we could say on one end, because they act on something they shouldn't have, maybe you tell me it's their own fault. It's their own fault. So they'll pay a price. They'll pay a serious price. Right? They're going to pay a price anyway. But what if they wouldn't have necessarily done this? What if they got influenced and that caused them to do it? Now, the fact that they did it, are they liable? According to everybody, yeah. We'll make it easy. They're liable. But they never would have done it, let's say, in God's eyes. God knows deep in their heart they wouldn't have done it. But they weren't strong enough to withstand the temptation, and they got convinced by others, and that allowed them to do it. That's a whole different thing. Person guilty is charged. But who's more guilty? The one who influenced. They're much more guilty. I know of a story of somebody woman who becomes a lesbian, which we learn out from the actions of Egypt, right? The Torah says, don't go after the ways of the Egyptians, right? The commentaries say that was one thing that, that's what it's talking about, right? One aspect of it. So this person never would have been gone in that way had they not been influenced by someone else, very charismatic and whatever. But got convinced because of this person. Now, a person can say maybe they were leaning that way, other things. Yeah, there could be some other factors involved. Okay, right? I'll throw that out there. I'm in a little bit of a generous mood. Let's say that's true. Yeah. But if the reality is they wouldn't have never done it, gone that far had someone else not convinced them and worked very hard to convince them. So who's liable here? Who's more liable? Person convinced. Now, does that mean the person didn't sin? Oh no, the person sinned. They acted with their own free choice. They got trapped. Or they, whatever, got convinced. Whatever it is. That's worse. Right? So, there are different levels here. Because 99% of the game or 97% of the game is what? Is knowing what to do. The other 1%, now, okay, now I got to go out and do it. Right? So most people don't know. Very good. Now, if you tell me somebody experiments, whether with immorality, whether with drugs, other things, they're already going there. They're already going in that way. So you just need a little bit of help to, help them along. So it doesn't take that much. But if you tell me someone never would have done this, or they weren't going in that way, and they got egged on and they got influenced and this and that, and they actually did it, are they liable? Yeah, 100%. No one is going to say they're not liable. The issue is what's worth, right? So again, someone who causes others to go astray, as we said, is worse than what the person actually does. It doesn't mean what the person does is not liable. They're liable, right? There's no question. There's no question there's going to be liability. No question at all. 100% they'll be liable. Now, if that's true, and they're going to be liable, but where did it start? If it started by someone influencing them, then the one who influences worse off. They didn't do the action. Maybe they did, doesn't matter, right? But essentially, they didn't do the action. They did the influencing. They convinced the other person to do it. Very good. But that's worse. Because at this point, the other person wouldn't have done it. Or, let's say, they convinced them to do it in a different way. In a worse way. Now, that person might be going in that direction anyway. This person helped them along to make it worse. But you say they're probably going to go that way anyway. Yeah, we could guess. Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe at some point, maybe they would have got there. Okay. But how did they get from A to B? They didn't get there on their own. They got from A to B based on the influence of someone else. Now, this is a very serious thing. That's why I'm harping on it. It's a very serious thing. Why? Because a lot of times, people get sucked into things because of peer pressure or societal pressure. There are so many people today. Vast majority of people today will breathe and suck in everything the media says, even if it's not true. They'll just suck it in as being true. Right? And the more it's said, the more the lie perpetuates. It's mind-boggling because, it's a little bit different also because they'll, a lot of times the media will suppress things. They won't give you certain information, or they'll give you the wrong information. Totally give you the wrong information because they have an agenda. I mean, it's mind-boggling how far it goes. Yeah. Give COVID as a good example. After COVID came out, there were people saying, and they thought it was conspiracy theory, this thing came from a lab in China or, whatever. They had you locked up. Nah, it's not true, this and that for a long time. They wouldn't even entertain that possibility. Now it comes out, that seems to be the case. So you tell me a lot of things happen between now and then. Yeah. A lot of different things. From the vaccine to other things. Right? Without going into all that. What's the bottom line? They didn't want people to think that. They wanted to think it was some sort of infectious disease. What its roots were, not sure. Exactly. But yeah, shut down the world, okay. But they wouldn't even entertain that possibility. Again, you can tell me the numbers are skewed, not so many people died from it, as they claim, because everyone had it in their system. They'll say they died from that, okay. So even if the numbers are skewed, I agree. I don't have an issue with it. But there was a lot of evidence to say at the beginning this is what happened. But they don't want to, that's a conspiracy theory. Spend hours speaking about things that the media suppresses or makes you think a certain way when it's not true. Totally not true. They have an agenda. Certain things they want to give over, and they won't entertain that other possibility because it doesn't fit their world outlook. A lot of things, are like that. But if you get fed enough of the same thing, then obviously a person's going to believe it. And it makes sense for them to believe it because everyone's saying it. But just because everyone's saying it doesn't mean it's true. This whole idea, one of the biggest lies out there besides Christianity and evolution is this idea of a Palestinian people. This lie has been perpetuated forever. Forever. It's been perpetuated. It's mind-boggling. If anyone knows anything, about the history, of Israel, they know that's not true. 100% they know it's not true. Because the facts don't show it. Mark Twain, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, came to Israel in the late 1880s. He wasn't a religious person per se. But he said exactly what the prophets say. The place is flattened like a pancake. There's nobody here. So we're all these quote-unquote Palestinians. The English, maybe the English destroyed them. Where are they complaining when the English took power? Where are they when the Ottomans took power? And before? You don't really hear anything. Why didn't you hear anything about them? Because they didn't exist. They didn't exist. But everyone will say, stole their land, whatever. now more of, the other lies, going on, right? And that is, what's going on in Gaza, right? Without getting into politics. People claiming genocide. Look at all these people that have been killed. Innocent people. Well, we know in Gaza not too many innocent people, but even so, the vast majority who have been killed, terrorists. Vast majority. Oh, look at all the kids and this and that killed, women. So, okay, let's say there are some that have been killed. Okay. First of all, vast majority of people being killed are terrorists. Okay. But even so, there's one very easy explanation, which no one seems to care or want to hear about, right? And that is they're hiding behind civilians. So there are going to be civilian casualties. It's the nature of war. It's going to happen. But if you're UN gets upset or, gets upset that, they blew up the school, a UN school. You know why they blew it up? Because they're shooting rockets from it. Any place that shoot rockets for is a military target. But why does nobody seem to care? Very simple question. Why does nobody seem to care that even if there are civilians killed, not the majority by any stretch, but even if civilians are being killed, isn't that part of what happens? Is what happens in war? Can that happen? But they're using them as human shields. So quote unquote innocent people will die. It's going to happen. Israel's doing their best not to do that. They're only target terrorists, okay. But it's not going to be perfect because we're not perfect by any stretch. That was the crazy thing. Nobody seems to care about the facts. Because they have an agenda. They want to put a lot of pressure on Israel, saying that they're committing genocide. And then America has to intervene and stop them. It's a lot of pressure. No question. But at the end of the day, if they're doing the best they can, but these maggots are using human shields, what are you supposed to do? You're in a no-win situation. You do the best you can do. See, but the difference is Israel's held by a totally different standard. Nobody asked us when America was in Iraq, killed tens of thousands. No one, made protests against Syria killing 600,000 of their own people, gassing them. Israel held on a different standard. Totally different standard. But nobody cares about the facts. As we always say, people screaming, from the river to the sea, they don't know which river or which sea. But what happened to modern history? What happened to basic information anyone can get if you really want it? But they don't care. Israel's different. Israel's held to a higher standard. But that makes sense logically. And the fact that Israel's been condemned in the UN more than any other nation combined, even if Israel's 1/1000th of the world's population, or less, right, let's say, mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. But no one seems to care about the facts. And people keep saying the same thing. Now, take it a little further. Just while I'm on this topic, not to get too political. How can it be? How can it be? After what happened on October 7th, how can there be even a question of having a two-state solution? Who is the other state? Who are the other people you're going to deal with that's going to be safe? Makes no sense. Yeah, so Israel held to a different standard. Okay. The facts are pretty clear if you want to look at them. But people keep saying the same thing. It's genocide, genocide, genocide. But if you're getting statistics from the enemy and they're telling you how many non-terrorists were killed, well, it's kind of hard, don't you think? Where are you getting your information from? Oh, from the enemy. Don't you think the enemy might be lying? Might be exaggerated? So they want to put a lot of pressure. So it's hard. So societal pressure in general, yeah. It can affect a person in many different ways. Many, many different ways. And person has to be careful. Because even if there's societal pressure, you still got to hold by Torah mitzvahs, which gets to the next question. That somebody asks, how do we relate to secular Jews? Try and draw them close. That's what we're supposed to do. Try and draw them close. Try and get them the right information. Even if they're not interested. That's what we're supposed to do. You draw them close. Do whatever we can. We do it. We try and do whatever we can. Try and bring them back. Bring them back in the fold. So if their mother's Jewish, they're Jewish. Very good. So some people would say, well, a few different ways to look at it. Should I invite a secular Jew to my house? Let's say for Shabbos, they're going to stay there, let's say. You have to offer that they're going to stay there. Very good. So let's say. Some people would say the influence might be bad. What they may speak about in front of your kids and this and that. Let's say a person had kids or whatever. Or wherever the conversation goes. Some people would say better not to have them. Better meet them in a different environment. Be more insular. Okay. Others would say, no, it's big mitzvah, don't invite them. Big mitzvah to try and draw them close. That's our obligation. Sometimes easier, sometimes not. Right? And they're afraid. Afraid, we might try and convince them to shave their heads or who knows what. That's what we have to do. Question how much they'll be interested in whatever, but we have to do whatever we can do. In order to draw them close. Somebody asked, some rabbis say there's no eternal punishment. Yeah, I've spoken about this before. There's no eternal punishment. Okay. Some great rabbis say there is eternal punishment. What's the middle ground? There is no middle ground. And you say, well, there are two different opinions. I don't know. Gemara seems to be pretty clear as one opinion. Some people can be eternally punished. Even by non-Jews. See that by Titus. What did Titus do? So before he died, he told people, burn his body, spread his ashes all over the seven seas. If he spreads his ashes all over the seven seas, God of Israel can't judge him. So what does the Gemara say happened to him? Every day, the Gemara says, God gathers all his ashes, puts them back together, and he burns them again. And he burns them again for eternity. Not for half a year, not for 2 years, not for 10 years. Eternity. Right? Other people brought up, his souls brought up, said, what happened to you? They got punished for eternity. There can be punishment for eternity. Now, normally we would say a person's not that evil. And because the person is not that evil, They all get eternity. Get 11 months, maybe 12 months of judgment. Or it could be sometimes they don't get a proper judgment. They have to come back in this world, right? As a reincarnated soul or whatever. But I would say most people are not going to get eternally judged and punished. I shouldn't say judged, punished. Because most people are not that evil. Now, so you believe that no one, would you say nobody's going to get eternally punished? No. I wouldn't go that far. There are people, I just said, that God eternally punishes, as the Gemara says. It's forever. Right? So where's the middle ground? There is no middle ground. There is no middle ground. There's some people want to say there's no punishment at all. That's also a problem. That goes against one of the Rambam's 13 principles. Goes against what we say in the Shema, right? The second paragraph, that there will be punishment. There's reward and punishment. Right? So for some people, will they get eternal punishment? Yes. Would I say most people would get eternal punishment? No. I don't think most people are that evil. But again, my Rebbe would say, I've never been in that world and come back. Okay. Very good. But I would say that it is definitely possible for people to be eternally punished. Would I say that's the majority of people? No. I definitely don't think it's the majority of people. There will be people that will be eternally punished, though. So you're asking where's the middle ground? Ain't none. No middle ground on that issue. Somebody asks, when Mashiach comes, current borders of Israel will expand, right? So the borders of Israel will be from the river Nile to the river Euphrates, yeah? Why not? Jordan will be part of Israel. Maybe some places in modern day Iraq, maybe. Syria. Right? There will be a greater Israel, no question. No question about it. So those borders eventually, they will expand. When the Messiah comes and is conquered and whatever. So, okay, we're taking over. Right? So that is definitely true. That 100% is true. Right? But that's when Mashiach comes. Right? So, So those different areas that are part of Greater Israel, they will be 100% part of Israel. Right? That's what's going to happen. But again, that's only going to happen when Mashiach comes. That's true. Are there any other questions here? Someone mentions about homeschooling, because they didn't like what was happening. Right? There are a lot of people today homeschool because they think public schools are trash, which they very well may be true. Right? Because of all the anti-Torah values. And plenty of anti-Torah values that are being taught in schools. No question. Just remember, a person moves to the Jewish community, their kids need to be educated, you can't homeschool them. They have to be educated in a Jewish school. Now, some Jewish schools may not take kids before conversion. They just might. Some will, some won't. It depends on the place. Which makes sense why they wouldn't, because they're not Jewish yet. And not everyone that's even interested in conversion or accepted by a rabbinical court for conversion will actually convert. So they take a chance by accepting it. There are other issues also. I know someone who their kids were accepted in the school. And because they were accepted in the school, I said how accepted were they? They said, their kids didn't really have so many play dates because they weren't Jewish. They weren't Jewish. Okay. But once they converted, it became easier. So there are schools out there that will accept people. There are schools out there that won't. I got hammered. I got hammered by somebody a number of years ago. Because of that, and school, school wouldn't accept them. Totally wouldn't accept them, and I told him. Like, they said, oh, it's desecration of God's name, and other Jews have told me the same thing. And they're not Jewish. No matter how Jewish they want to be. No matter if they're more Jewish than most Jews. Technically speaking, they're not Jewish. It's a Jewish school. You run into problems. Makes sense. I said very clearly, there will be places that will accept them. There will be places that won't. I made it very clear. Sounds like, you can't come back to me and say, oh, look, you gave me the wrong advice. I didn't give you the wrong advice. I told you some places will, some won't. Yeah. And there are places that will. Could be in your case, that place wouldn't. Okay. So what do you want from me? I told you it could happen. I didn't say it never happened. I didn't say every single school out there will accept non-Jews in the process of conversion. I never said that. Never backtracked on that. I said some will, some won't. Depends where you go. Yeah. But I said I understand why they wouldn't. Makes sense why they wouldn't. They don't want non-Jews in their schools. There's a lot of non-Jews that, no matter how close they are to Torah and mitzvahs, they don't convert. A lot of them don't convert. Some do. It's a small percentage. So why start off with that, even if they're in even if they're in the process, they're accepted by a rabbinical court? Okay. That doesn't mean they're going to end up converting. I've heard people say, why would a rabbinical court say that? We move into the community. We downsize this or that, the other thing. Why do they say to us, yeah, we told them, we'll be back, and they'll say, okay, we'll see. Why'd they say that? I said, because they know what they're dealing with. Not you, per se. I said that they're, they know what's out there. They know the vast majority are not going to end up converting. It's a very small percentage. Yeah, but look what we've done and this and that. Okay. Even if that is true. Yeah. Even if that is true. Does that mean 100% you're going to convert? Doesn't matter what you've done. Or it still may not end up converting for whatever reason. Could happen. Who knows why? It for sure could happen. Right? So they understand that. They for sure understand that. So why, so why, if that's the case, then the rabbinical court knows what they're talking about. They know. They're not looking at it as, oh, maybe it's a 70-30 chance that for sure they're going to convert. 70% chance they're going to convert. Okay. If those were the odds, right? I like statistics. If those were the odds, okay, so they have less of a claim. Why they shouldn't allow them? Because majority of people convert. Okay. But that's not the case. That's not the case. So some places will say, unequivocally, doesn't matter who the person is or the family or recommendations, they will not take them until after conversion. Period. They're just not opening up a Pandora's box. They won't do it. And there are other places, no, they will. Obviously based on what the rabbinical court says, other people say, right? But it depends on the place. So I can understand from both perspectives, but at the end of the day, they're taking a huge responsibility here. They're taking a huge responsibility based on the fact that most people won't finish the process. No matter how committed they say they are now. Most people won't finish the process. That's what's out there. Or some won't deal with them because even if they do, well, they should deal with them if they're Jewish. But, there is a percentage of people that even after becoming Jewish flake out for any number of reasons. When they go off as a Jew, not as a non-Jew, if it was a proper conversion. But they know what they're dealing with. They know exactly what they're dealing with. So it makes sense, right? Totally makes sense. But there are places, there are places that would. Okay. So if they do, good. But as I stated clear, and I'll still say the same thing, there are places that will, places that won't. Right? So again, I got hammered by somebody a number of years ago and said, what do you like? It's not fair. We're legitimate. We're this, we're that. So I said, it doesn't matter. The place you try to get into won't take you. Because that's what they hold. That's what they hold. End of story. Not pleasant. That's reality. Right? So what's the answer? You have to realize there are places that will do it. There are places that won't. So there's a question here. Why do we do circumcision? What is the purpose of circumcision? So everybody agrees. Everybody agrees for a male, that foreskin, the whole purpose of it is to take it off. That is the purpose. That piece of skin, according to the Torah, forget about medicine. We'll get to medicine in a second. According to the Torah, what's its purpose? One purpose only. Take it off. Right? Baby's 8 days old. It's not sick or other issues. You take it off. Now, medically, over the years, there's always a different opinion among doctors. Some say you take it off, it's good against cancer. Some say it's not good against cancer. Right? Always difference of opinion. Whether it's good or not against that. So, technically speaking, the whole purpose is God said take it off. Okay. Now, let's ask another question. The other question is, the whole purpose of that is to take it off. Why did God not create us circumcised? Now, there are select individuals throughout the centuries that were born circumcised, right? So, they have different purpose than most people in the world, right? But it's very rare, right? So what do we see? God created the world imperfect. He gave man the ability to what? To perfect it. Now, we'll give an example. God made wheat. What did he do with the wheat? What did he give us the ability to? Turn into bread. Right? There were jungles. What did God do? Gave man the ability to create civilization. So basically, we have raw materials. Yeah, and we use our brains' ingenuity for what? To use them in the right way. Now, by circumcision, we're born uncircumcised. So who's going to finish the job? We do. Certainly metaphorically. That's true. Right? We have instincts, we have natural tendencies. That part of our psyche, as I would always say. But these tendencies need to be what? Refined. Right? People say, I was born that way, right? I've spoken about this a lot. Because you were born with a certain DNA, okay. Being born with a certain DNA does not excuse immoral behavior. So you got to get rid of negative character traits. Now, you look at something like this. Now, why is it considered such a sacred thing? I mean, today, certainly among most Jews today circumcise their kids. Most Jews today make a Passover Seder or light Hanukkah candles. Maybe it's about all they do. But why circumcision? Circumcision, we could easily say, isn't that mutilation? Isn't that mutilation of the body? Right? But it does represent something unbelievably sacred. Because what does it do? What are we supposed to do in this world? Sanctify it. Make it holy. The way we eat, the way we sleep, procreate, other things. Our homes should be sanctified as synagogues. But again, if we're supposed to sanctify in many ways, why do it as a child? Maybe it's better circumcised person when he's older, when he's mature. So you say, well, it's easier because the child doesn't know what's going on, has no idea what's going on. So this is because Jewish connection to God is intrinsic. Whether our minds believe in God or not, our hearts love Him or not, a person can join the covenant without being consciously aware of it. Still part of the covenant. Because subconsciously we're already there. Now, there's a good question also. Why do it on the 8th day? Well, you say, very good. Doesn't the Torah say do it on the 8th day? Yeah. But what does 8 represent? 7 represents nature. Right? 7, you talk about 7 days of the week. 7 colors of a rainbow. 7 musical notes. Very good. So it means things in this world. Nature. What is 8? 8's a number that surpasses 7. Well, very good. Right? It's after 7. Represents what's above this world. Miraculous. Something beyond nature. How do the Jewish people survive? Miracles. If you put any other nation in what the Jewish people have gone through, you put any other nation through that, they disappear. You see all the great nations that persecute the Jewish people. The Romans, the Greeks, the Ottomans, the Byzantines, the Babylonians. Where are they today? Gonzo. They don't exist. Totally don't exist. Right? So the Jewish people survive on miracles. Our existence today, I mentioned this many times, our existence today is what defies the laws of nature. So what do we do by circumcision? We say a new Jewish child is born into this world, like, welcome to the world, kid, boom. Yeah? So we're telling him about the miraculous existence on the 8th day of his life. But because he's a Jew, he's going to live through miracles, right? Expect miracles. So that would be my short, long answer on that. Someone mentioned, I don't think any person who comes to know Judaism well will return to idolatry. I don't know. Maybe. Everyone's got an evil inclination. I know of a story, someone came to Torah mitzvahs. They came to Torah mitzvahs. They felt, I don't know, they didn't have a rabbi in their lives. I don't know exactly the story. Didn't necessarily, go back within a Jewish community. A lot of pressure from family. They ended up going back. They ended up going back to be a secular Jew. Now, why did they do that? Because pressure was too hard. They felt they were in a situation that God put them in a situation they couldn't handle. Now, there are many times we may think we can't handle certain things, but obviously God knows better, right? Nonetheless, could a person, maybe you'll tell me that a person maybe won't go back to being a pagan. Okay. Maybe they won't go back to being idolaters. But there are many cases of people that convert to go back to being, just secular. There are plenty of cases of that. Maybe they don't necessarily go back to idolatry. Okay. Could be. Right? But it's basically like a Jew goes off. Right? They go off the derech, so to speak. They become secular. So a convert can do the same thing. It can go off in many different ways. Happens. Some people think they got a raw deal, something was too hard, so they wanted a break or whatever it is. Can happen. But I may agree. If they're not going to go back, if they're not going to keep Judaism, they're not going to keep anything either. Not going to convince to go back and be a Christian or to be a Buddhist or whatever. You're right. That's probably true. That I would probably agree with. Right? They'll go off like an Orthodox Jew would go off, become a secular Jew. Okay, they would go off. Would they go back to being, idolaters? Yeah, maybe not. They just won't be anything. They won't be religious at all. They won't be, Christian or Buddhist or anything. That could be. Yeah, once a person comes out of idolatry, they don't know we go back. They don't know we go back. If they're going to do anything, if they don't like what they're doing as being a Jew, then yeah. So either they'll be secular, maybe they'll be a Noahide or whatever. But essentially they're a Jew. So to say they'll go back to idolatry, yeah, that I would agree. It's probably a stretch. But what I meant is that when they go off, they'll be secular. They're not going to be religious. They're not religious for anyone else either. Right? They're not going to be religious Christians or Buddhists or whatever. Right? Could be. Right? That I would probably agree. Because the person want to become a Jew and come out of Christianity or come out of idolatry, to go back to it after they've been convinced not that way, that's a hard sell. If they've been really convinced. They haven't been really convinced, but they do it anyway. And then someone reconvinces them. Okay, that can happen. But again, would I say it's the majority of people? Yeah, probably not. Right? Probably not. I would probably agree with that statement. Yeah, let me see. Are there any other questions or one other thing here? 1 second. Yeah, listen, keep in mind, the person becomes, an Orthodox Jew, and they try to the best of their ability. They could be doing things for years. But, it can be a very lonely process, and people can give up in the process. People just, have a hard time with communities, have a hard time with people. They feel very lonely. Yeah. Could that cause someone, okay, I'm not going to say they're going to go back to idolatry. Could that cause someone to just forget about the process, and do nothing or do very little? Yeah, could. Very well could. Coppin's law is you got to be dedicated. You got to want it more than anything else. But you got to live it every day. It's hard. It's hard. The stakes are much greater. Trials are much greater. It's hard. I don't think there's any question. A lot of factors, that would stop a person from converting. A lot of factors. Now, if they don't end up converting, they weren't supposed to convert, okay. If they could have converted, they didn't. There are other issues. But there are a lot of factors stopping a person. Right? Being able to move to a community, one of them. Family, one of them. Yeah. A number of things can stop them. Person has a bad experience. Right? I just recently in contact with someone, or re-in contact with somebody. They're telling me, or I asked them where they're holding the process. They said they love to convert, but the rest of his family won't. And his wife won't. He's not going to get divorced. Right? But one of the reasons he said, I didn't get all the details. or any of the details really, but basically he said because, the rabbi of the community made a bad impression. Or Jews, I don't know, Jews made a bad impression. I think the rabbi made a bad impression on the rest of the family. Now again, is that enough? Why not to convert? For these people, I don't know. Depends what happened. Not everyone's meant to convert. Okay. Person's gonna have a bad experience. Or a lot of bad experiences. Like, what's the point? I should be a punching bag. I should have to suffer more. Why? Why should it be that hard? Shouldn't be. Yeah. So they can give up. But if you have one spouse, because of that, it's hard to fix. Again, I don't know what happened, so I can't say. But I would just say that, if that's the reason, yeah. So you go look at it one of two ways. Rabbi's to blame, right? No question. They could have converted, they don't. Or a person can say, okay, maybe it's part of the test. If they had a bad experience, doesn't mean that's what Judaism is. And a lot of people will tell me, wow, this person said this person said that, or did this or did that. Okay. Can't mix up Jews and Judaism. That's true. Right? That 100% is true. But I would say at the same time, you got to know you're in for the long haul. You got to take the good with the bad. Sometimes it can be extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. Person can be spinning the wheels for a long time. For a very long time. I'm not saying it has to be, but it can happen. Very well could happen. And then finally say, okay, finally they move and this and that, and they have other problems. Not easy across the board. It's not easy. Not supposed to be easy. The people that finish this process, the 20% or less that finish this process, yeah, they worked very hard to get there. They worked extremely hard to get there. They should be commended, right? No question. Right? Absolutely no question. But it's not easy by any stretch. It's not supposed to be easy. Never supposed to be easy. But for the sake, come on. Does that have to be this hard? Okay, it depends. Some people have it really hard. Okay. I'm not going to say not. I'm not going to say not. It happens. Some people go through excruciating pain. Yeah. Only if you survive, bottom line. You want it that bad, all the other things won't matter. You'll do whatever it takes, even if it's hard. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time. 9 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions? Find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good middle of the day.